What if I told you that 90% of screenwriting books are teaching you the same recycled formulas that leave your scripts feeling mechanical and soulless? And what if there was one book that could completely rewire how you understand story at the core level? Today, I'm breaking down exactly why The Anatomy of Story by John Truby is superior to every screenwriting book, how its 7-step system actually works, and the specific techniques from this book that got my films into South by Southwest and onto HBO. By the end of this video, you'll understand story structure in a way that 90% of writers don't. I've read them all. McKee's story, Save the Cat, The Hero's Journey, you name it. And for years, I thought I was getting better at storytelling. But my scripts, they were technically correct, but emotionally dead. Then I discovered one book that completely rewired how I understand story at the molecular level. And today, I'm going to break down why The Anatomy of Story and John Truby isn't just another screenwriting book. It's the only one you actually need. Hey, what's up? I'm 𝐏𝐸𝐿, and I'm a filmmaker who's made every mistake in the book. My first feature, 𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐷, premiered at South by Southwest. I've consulted in the writer's room with Issa Rae and had my work licensed to HBO and Amazon. But before all that, I was a kid from Miami with a camera I didn't know how to use and way too much ambition. I've been through the full arc, making shorts in my bedroom, trying to break into TV, getting a series greenlit, losing it, and clawing my way back. This channel is where I share the tools and the scars along the way. Okay, so here's the thing that nobody wants to admit about screenwriting books. Robert McKee's story, beautiful philosophy, but zero practical application. I remember finishing that 400-page beast and thinking, okay, but how do I actually write my second act? It's like getting a lecture on the theory of, I don't know, combustion when all you need is someone to teach you how to start a fire. You feel me? And Save the Cat. Blake Snyder, look, he did something revolutionary. He gave us a beach. Page 12, catalyst. Page 25, break into 2. Cool. But you know what happens when everyone follows the same exact formula? You get a decade of movies that feel like, I don't know, they came off of an assembly line. That book turned storytelling into paint by numbers, and Hollywood ate it up because it was safe. And The Hero's Journey, well, Campbell was, I feel like he was documenting mythology, not teaching you how to write a screenplay. It's not descriptive, it's more prescriptive. It tells you what stories have done, not how to build one from scratch. But here's where Truby flips the entire game. He doesn't give you a template to fill in. He teaches you how to grow a story organically from a single premise. It's the difference between assembling IKEA furniture and learning actual carpentry. You know, like one gives you the same bookshelf as everyone else, the other teaches you how to build whatever the hell you can imagine. As Truby says, most writers use an approach that is external, mechanical, piecemeal, and generic. His approach, internal, organic, interconnected, and original. But wait, if Truby's system is so different, what exactly are these mysterious 7 steps? All right, so what makes Truby's approach so different? He breaks down story into 7 essential steps. Not acts, not beats, but actual structural DNA that exists in every compelling narrative. And before you roll your eyes and start thinking this is another formula, hear me out. These steps are weakness and need, desire, opponent, plan, battle, self-revelation, and new equilibrium. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds like every other structure, but here's the genius part. Truby doesn't just label these elements. He shows you how they're connected, how each one grows out of the previous one organically. All right, so let me break it down with a real example from my own work. When I was developing my first feature film, 𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐷, I had this Haitian nurse character, and I knew she was overworked and desperate. Using McKee or Save the Cat, I would have just plugged her into plot points. But Truby made me ask the question, what is her psychological weakness? She believes rest equals failure. Okay, what's her moral weakness? She uses people as a means to an end. Once I nailed the weakness and the need, everything else clicked into place naturally. The desire wasn't just get to work on time. It was proving she could handle anything alone. The opponent wasn't traffic or a broken car. It was anyone who tried to help her. Because accepting help meant admitting weakness. The plan, the battle, the revelation, they all grew from that initial weakness like branches from a tree trunk. That's what Truby teaches. Not how to hit page markers, but how to create a living, breathing story where every element is connected to every other element. Truby puts it this way: need is the wellspring of the story. Once you nail the need, everything else flows from it. Quick sidebar. If you're sitting there like, damn, this sounds amazing, but I don't have time to read like a 400-page book right now, or maybe you're just allergic to reading theory, I got you. I created a workbook that breaks down all Truby's key concepts into actionable worksheets. It's basically the Cliff Notes version for filmmakers who need to apply this stuff today. Or if you're actually going to read the book, which you should, the workbook works as a companion guide to help you implement everything as you go. It's free, links in the description. You're welcome. Okay, so once you've got your structure locked down, but here's the problem. Most writers still end up with a technically correct script that has zero soul. Why? Because they're missing the invisible thread that Truby says should connect every single scene. Here's something that'll blow your mind about storytelling. Most writers treat theme like it's the cherry on top. They write their whole script, then try to sprinkle in some meaning at the end. Oh, yeah, it's about redemption or whatever. That's backwards. Truby shows you that theme isn't something you just add. It's the invisible thread connecting every single element of your story. It's not what your character learns at the end. It's the argument the entire story is making from page 1. When I first read this in Anatomy of Story, I literally had to put the book down and rethink everything I'd written. You see, Truby explains that your theme creates what he calls a moral argument. Every character represents a different approach to the same moral problem. Your hero has one answer, your opponent has another, and the story is a test to see which approach wins. Let me give you a concrete example. In The Dark Knight, which Truby actually breaks down in later editions, the theme isn't just chaos versus order. Every single character is a different answer to the question, how far should you go to create justice? Batman says vigilantism with rules. Joker says burn it all down. Harvey Dent says work within the system until the system breaks you. Rachel, Gordon, the mob, everyone's testing a different hypothesis about justice. That's not decoration, that's architecture. As Truby explains, the moral argument is your point of view on how people should act in the world. It's your personal philosophy, expressed through action. So you understand the 7 steps. You get how theme works. But what about the dreaded second act, where 90% of scripts go to die? Truby has this solution that nobody else talks about. Okay, great. Now once you understand the 7 key steps, Truby takes us deeper with what he calls the 22 steps. And before you freak out thinking this is getting too complicated, remember, these aren't rigid requirements. Think of them as an accordion. A 30-second commercial might only hit the 7 basic steps. A feature film naturally expands to include most of the 22. A novel doesn't have 60 different steps. It has the same 22 steps, repeating and layering throughout multiple storylines and subplots. Each character arc might go through its own revelation sequence. Each subplot gets its own build-up and payoff. Same tools, just used multiple times to create complexity. What makes the 22 steps so powerful isn't memorizing them like vocabulary words. It's understanding that Truby mapped out the hidden choreography that exists in every great story. The dance between what your character knows and what they don't know yet. See, most story problems come from the revelation problems. Your character either learns too much too fast, making the story feel rushed, or they don't learn anything new for 40 pages, making it feel stagnant. Truby's 22 steps are essentially a revelation management system. They ensure your character is consistently discovering new information that changes their approach, raises the stakes, or flips their understanding of what really is happening. I used to have massive second act problems. My scripts would start strong, set up the conflict, and then wander around for 40 pages until it was time for the climax. But once I understood Truby's revelation sequence, I realized my problem. I was thinking in terms of events instead of discoveries. Now every scene is built around what new information the character learns and how that new information changes their trajectory. Truby nails it. He says, a story is a sequence of reveals, a dance between what a character knows and what they don't know yet. But here's the thing, understanding these concepts intellectually is one thing, actually implementing them in your writing, that's where most people get stuck. So how do you take this theory and turn it into pages? So how do you actually use this book? Because here's the thing, you don't just read The Anatomy of Story, you work it. I've read this book like 7 times, and each time I'm working on a new project, I literally use it as a workbook. Truby gives you practical exercises for every concept. When he talks about creating a premise, he doesn't just say, write a log line. He teaches you how to find the gold buried in your initial idea through a process he calls premise development. You write your premise, then you ask, what's the deepest level of conflict possible? What's the worst thing that could happen to your hero? What's the best thing that could happen that would still destroy them? When I was stuck on my series that eventually got greenlit, then killed, but that's another story, I went back to Truby's chapter on character web. He teaches you to create characters not into isolation, but as network, where each character highlights a different aspect of your hero's weakness. Once I mapped that out, suddenly I had 8 distinct characters instead of 8 variations of the same person. The book also revolutionized how I approach rewriting. Instead of just fixing dialogue or adding action scenes, I diagnose story problems using Truby's framework. Is the desire clear? Is the opponent attacking the hero's greatest weakness? Are the revelations coming at the right place? It's like having a story doctor on speed dial. And here's the real kicker. Once you internalize Truby's system, you start seeing it everywhere. Every movie, every show, every story either follows those principles or fails because it doesn't. You become a story diagnostician, if that's a word. You understand why Breaking Bad works, why Game of Thrones fell apart, why certain indie films with no budget hit harder than $200 million blockbusters. This is what Truby means when he says, great storytelling isn't about following rules. It's about understanding the organic principles that make stories work. Okay, so here's the bottom line. Every screenwriting book has something to offer. McKee will make you think deeply about philosophy of story. Save the Cat will give you a quick formula. The Hero's Journey will connect you to mythological traditions, but The Anatomy of Story, it'll teach you how to actually build stories from the ground up. This isn't about following rules. It's about understanding the organic principles that make stories work. Once you internalize what Truby teaches, you start seeing the matrix in every film and show you watch. You'll understand why something worked and why it didn't. More importantly, you'll know how to fix it on your own when it's broken. The 3 biggest takeaways from today. First, story structure isn't about hitting plot points. It's about creating an organic system where every element grows from your character's core weakness. Second, theme isn't decoration you just add on later. It's the DNA that connects every character and scene from page 1. Third, the difference between good and great stories is revelation management, controlling what your character discovers and when they discover it. Now, if you're serious about storytelling, whether you're writing features, TV, shorts, or even novels, The Anatomy of Story needs to be your foundation. Not your only resource, but your first resource. Everything else builds on what Truby teaches. So here's what you need to do. Get the book, don't just read it, work through it. Whatever project you're developing right now, do the exercises, map out your 7 steps, build your character web, let your story grow organically instead of forcing it into someone else's template. And remember that workbook I mentioned? It's got all the exercises laid out, character web templates, 7-step breakdowns, basically everything you need to actually implement Truby's system without getting lost in the sauce, the theory. I use it myself. Every time I start a new project, it saved me countless hours of flipping through pages, trying to find that one concept I need. grab it below if you want a fast track to this whole process. And if this video helped you understand story or screenwriting structure in a new way, please like and comment below. It lets me know if I should keep creating content like this and if it's resonating with you all. Now that you got story down pat, you're probably thinking, all right, cool. Now how do I get my film made? Don't worry, I got you. I created a free mini course where I break down how to set up your project package. Things like your artist statement, your pitch deck, and all those materials that really set you up to get your project greenlit. So if you want that free mini course, just click on the link below. I just want you all to have access so there isn't any guesswork in the independent film industry. So yeah, keep creating, and remember, your story matters because only you can tell it. Peace.